Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Knockdown Sports Radio. I am Chris Calicut, as always, joined by my partner in crime, Mr. Cody Tigg. How you doing, my man?
Good to be here, man. Looking forward to today. You got a wonderful person we're going to be speaking with, and I am looking forward to this whole little shindig we got going on.
Absolutely. And to introduce our special guest, managing editor of Fightful.com, also sports aficionado, Mr. Sean Ross Sapp. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Very glad to be on the show. Look forward to it all week. As much as I love pro wrestling and MMA, I love rampant NBA speculation even more, which you've told me isn't necessarily your favorite thing, but ooh, I love me some NBA hypotheticals.
And this is why we have you here, because see, we here at Knockdown Sports Radio try to stay on like the more serious but also fun topics, right? So we try to stay away from the talking head type of stuff that you already see 10 times a day. But when it comes to stuff like this, you know, you can let your man bun down, so to speak, and have a little fun.
Well, let me say, I am nothing if not a talking head. So here I am.
That's why he gets paid the big bucks, ladies and gentlemen. But first of all, if you'd like to follow the show on Twitter, and you ready, Cody? You ready?
Sure, go ahead, man.
You can find us on Twitter at Knockdown underscore. Oh, that was terrible this time. Knockdown underscore media on Twitter, and you can now find us on iTunes. Count these up for me, Cody, if you don't mind. So that's 1. Google Play.
2.
Stitcher.
3.
TuneIn.
4.
And iHeartMedia, which just got approved this week.
That's 5. So we got 5 places for 5 stars. People, make it happen.
That's right. 5 stars everywhere. You can subscribe just about anywhere podcasts can be found. And Sean, real quick before we get into it, man, tell us a little bit about Fightful and what you're doing over there.
Yeah, I actually left the most visited wrestling news website in the world, which you are familiar with yourself, to help launch Fightful.com a couple of years ago. It's a crossover site, MMA, boxing, pro wrestling. We do shows all the time. I think I do, between the premium service and the free service, 30 shows a month, but you can get all your free wrestling news over at Fightful. We're trying to push wrestling journalism in a different, more respectable way. Not to say that there aren't other respectable outlets, just we seek out exclusives, interviews, access with the wrestlers and promoters, fighters, all that good stuff. We have a youtube.com/Fightful. We are available across any podcast platform you can think of. Just check it out, Fightful.com. If you don't like MMA or pro wrestling, we have FightfulWrestling.com and FightfulMMA.com. It's a good time.
It really is. Those guys do fantastic work, especially on their podcast. Their creative writing, their coverage, their exclusives, pretty much everything that you want in a crossover website, those guys have it. I would highly suggest you check them out. But we may talk a little bit about the WWE weekend that was toward the end of the show, but I really want to get into the NBA trade, free agency, draft, everything coming together. Really, I think the draft's tomorrow night. It snuck up on us, guys.
It did. Yeah, the draft is here. I'm a little disappointed in who's being drafted in terms of looking at the whole one and done list, but I mean, that's why Sean's here.
I mean, you know, half his Kentucky Wildcats are going to be probably leaving again, but that's every year.
Hey, we are going to have a senior on the team in the form of a transfer. So
that's a first under John
Chris, that's better than you, because we'll talk about it later, but ain't no one getting drafted from Chapel Hill. All right, go ahead, Chris.
Hold on, what? Oh, easy. Easy. I got Theo Pinson going with the 59th pick. So the first domino in the whole trade and free agency market sort of fell today, and our local North Carolina Charlotte Hornets, Dwight Howard, I would say under-delivering big man for most of his career, but he got sent to the Nets for, wait for it, Timothy Mozgov and 2 second-rounders in the future. Mozgov.
How bad do you want to have to get under that luxury tax in order to do that? To get rid of Dwight Howard off of his best season since maybe his first in Houston, maybe his season in LA. He played every game. I think he missed one.
He missed one game
for the first time in like 8 or 9 years. He was fantastic, at least from a statistical aspect this year. To take on an extra year of Timothy Mozgov, a.k.a. the worst contract in the NBA. Somehow, his contract, which was given to him by the Lakers, shocker, I think it was, wasn't it? No,
yes, absolutely.
I thought it was by the Hawks.
No, it was by the Lakers, by the same guy who's now the general manager of the Hornets, Mitch Kupchak.
Yep.
I thought the Hawks had signed him.
I think they may have done it, and like it was a 1 year and gone from over there. But yeah, Mitch Kupchak was the original GM and president of the Lakers when he signed Mozgov to that awful deal.
Yeah,
and magically 4 years later, he's back with Mitch Kupchak.
Okay, you're right. And somehow, Luol Deng, who also got a horrible contract from the Lakers and doesn't play, is a better value than Timothy Mozgov. The absence of Luol Deng is more valuable than the presence of Timothy Mozgov, which, we'll talk about LeBron, I'm sure. I'm not convinced that if LeBron doesn't end up on the Lakers that somehow Luol Deng turns into a 40-minute a game guy again, because, that's what happens. Or if he goes to San Antonio, he'll probably be the MVP next year because of Greg Popovich. But Timothy Mozgov, one of the worst contracts in history.
So congratulations, Charlotte Hornets. You now have at least 3 7-foot white guys that can't play. And I'm actually dissing one of my own, former Tar Heel Tyler Zeller. Or no, wait. Is Tyler on? No, Tyler's on the Celtics. It's his younger brother, Cody, that's on the Hornets. My apologies. But now you got Frank Kaminsky there. Go Badgers. And, and Sean hit the nail on the head because they are way over on the luxury tax right now. They're going to be hit hard, as basically, unless they dump a lot of contracts. Dwight Howard was one of those they needed to get rid of. And I assume Mozgov's is done after this year, so they can get rid of that one as well.
Oh, no. They have it through 1920.
Yeah.
Oh, my. Okay, so 2 more seasons.
Yeah, no, we as a Hornets fan, we crapped a brick on this one, okay? I mean, there's nothing good. No team won this trade. I mean, I think the Nets got 2 second-round draft picks, which is going to be great. But the thing is, this is what's going to happen in terms of what I plan for the future for the Nets. The Nets are going to probably bomb the season on purpose, since that's what we all believe happens in the NBA most of the time anyway, with all the speculation on every channel you listen to, because the Nets have not had a first-round pick since 2013. So they're going to be shooting for the lottery, probably bomb a season. Dwight will probably somehow get hurt because that's what Dwight does. And then the Nets are going to be a superstar show in like 6 years. So it might work out in the future, but the Hornets are never going to be an above 500 team in the history of forever.
This type of thing makes me think that the NBA needs to expand the lottery and just include every team in the lottery. Even the Warriors have a negligible percentage of a chance to get a top draft pick, because I think that's the only way you can discourage losing. Now, I understand that could create some competitive balance issues, but my God, man, it's sad. I'm sure you all have talked about this before. What do you all think happens with Kemba Walker? Because, I mean, I would be shocked if they kept him.
Well, for me, he's the cornerstone of that team and that franchise. And if they got rid of him, I think the fan base would completely turn against them unless they got a heck of a deal back for him. And he's a multi-time All-Star. He's toward the top of the rankings every year as far as statistics. I mean, he's a volume scorer as well as a solid assist man. But Kemba Walker, if you saw, I think he eclipsed the all-time greatest scoring leader for the Hornets this past year. If you saw the emotion in his post-game sort of news conference to the actual stadium, he spoke to the entire stadium. Charlotte means a lot to him too, because I think he was one of those guys that was not highly acclaimed coming out of UConn and found his sort of niche or his home there in Charlotte. And it would be tough for him to go anywhere else, I think. Cody, what do you think?
Sean, he's going to Cleveland.
Jesus, easy with the facts, bro.
If he gets traded, here's the thing, and I know we're touching on the big name later, but if anything happens It's not going to happen till July once the decision point 3 is made. And once that's made, that's when we're going to decide what happens to Kevin Love and Kemba Walker. It's probably going to be a 3-way deal. I don't know who the third team would be because I doubt Kevin Love's not coming to Charlotte at all.
That would make 4 white guys.
I mean, he played in Minnesota for quite a while, so
yeah. But I mean, heck, even they know how to get above 500, Sean. So
that's true. That's a good point.
Do that. So if he gets traded, we're not going to find out until July. And if it happens, it's going to be a 3-way deal. I don't know who the third team is, but Kemba will be going to Cleveland.
Okay. We've spent way too much time on the Hornets because that's way too much time.
I think that's what most people who play for the Hornets end up saying.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Hey, at least we now have the Popovich lineage of coaching. I wonder if it's going to work out the same way as the Bill Belichick lineage of coaching in the NFL. We'll see. We have a former Spurs assistant. I can't remember his name right now, but apparently solid choice from all accounts that I've heard.
You also have $24 million on the books for a guy who's a 4th option at best on almost any other team. Nicholas Batum.
Let's not depress ourselves anymore, guys. Let's move on, shall we?
Let's get to the next subject. This is
so more recent.
God, the Hornets suck.
More recent developments. Kawhi Leonard from the Spurs, who we all think of as this Tim Duncan type, where do it the Spurs way, who is quiet, supposedly, and calm and cool and collected, and just goes with his lunch pail, does his job, is a great 2-way player, but is now saying he wants out of San Diego. Do you guys think he's doing this on his own to build his brand, or do you think he has somebody sort of pulling the strings for him to cause this little kerfluffle within the league? Sean, what about you?
Man, the Kawhi Leonard, I hate to use the term brand, but I think it's taken such a big hit because if I'm another team, 1, I wonder if the guy's healthy. 2, I wonder, what am I willing to give up for a guy who either wasn't healthy enough to finish out this season or gave up on his team? It's one or the other. Like there's no big positive to the situation that happened there. I mean, of course he's a fantastic player, or at least he was. We literally don't know anything. For all we know, this could be a Brandon Roy situation. He got hurt so bad. Nobody knows. That's the thing. We haven't seen the guy play. Not only that, you're doing it, and at the end of the year, he could just hit the bricks, and he could leave.
Cody?
Well, I guess that's my thing. Like, everyone's saying there's this rift between Pop and him. Look, I think we all know at this point, Pop does not care about anything else but coaching the game of basketball. So he's not going to play somebody until he's told he can play somebody. I mean, yeah, Pop's become very political here recently. We all know that in the past 2 or 3 years. But the thing is, Pop has a job. Pop's job is to coach the game. If he's told that he can't play, he can't play. So this whole summit that happened between Pop and Kawhi, I think that means nothing. I think it's just Pop checking on his guy to say, hey, if you're ready to play, you can play because you know we're going to the playoffs every year. So you want in or want out. If you want out, then leave. I don't care. I'm Greg Popovich. I've won enough. I'm going to the Hall of Fame. So
right, but was it Rudy Gay, who was also on the Spurs, just opted out of his deal? So that's another. I wouldn't call him a super important piece, but a solid role player who has chosen to move on from the Spurs. And the other rumbling that I'm hearing for Kawhi is that Tony Parker made a comment that Kawhi's injury was not nearly as bad as his, but he came back to play for his team, whereas Kawhi didn't. He's sort of calling out his character, which is really the first time we've seen Leonard's character even take a hit whatsoever.
I mean, I just don't agree with that. I think Tony Parker, I think age plays a difference there. Kawhi's getting hurt while he's young. Kawhi has to protect himself. He has to be able to play for the rest of his career. Tony Parker got hurt a little bit later than him, Tony Parker's career is nearing the end. So Kawhi has to protect his brand, whether we call it a brand or something. Yeah,
he's only 27, so the dude has at least 5, 6, 7 pretty good, if not great, years left if he's healthy, right, Sean?
Yeah, and that he's reached a prime period too. Also, especially considering the free agent situation. And my God, if he opts out after next year, well, we don't know who's going to sign like a 1-year deal or whatever, and go. And he might have to sign, or he might have to prove himself this year. But man, if I am a team, I got to wonder, how much am I willing to give up? How much am I willing to give up for that? And, you know, there have been rumblings that maybe the Bulls are interested and they have a package ready. And I'm thinking, you better not give up Laurie for him. I don't know who else I'm comfortable giving up for this. Maybe if you re-sign Zach LaVine and get rid of him, maybe that. I don't want Chris Dunn gone. I don't really want Bobby Portis gone. So I even as a Bulls fan, I'm looking at a guy who averaged 25 points a game in 16-17, and I'm like, no, I'm not that sold on him. No thanks, not for a year.
Well, here's where I think he may end up going, and this is kind of just speculation because, as you said, you don't know how much you want to give up for him. So who has a wonderful nucleus of young players, almost really a surplus, and that's the Boston Celtics. They could give away 2 or 3 of those guys that did really well in this playoff run and made a name for themselves, and now go to San Antonio to continue to do so in the Western Conference. But Kawhi gets that big-time star potential, with Kyrie Irving back, hopefully healthy as well. And that still stays a very, very dangerous team.
When I look at a guy like Al Horford, I'm like, God, he would fit in with the Spurs like very, very well. But I don't know if they'd be willing to give him up. But if they – I mean, you look at how many guys they have right now. They got Brown, Tatum, and Hayward. That's an awful lot of wing players to be adding another one. You're going to have to give up at least one of them. Yeah,
I think Brown will be gone. I don't think they're going to touch Tatum since I think he's the bright up-and-coming star for them.
All signs are pointing that Tatum is on the do-not-touch list for anything, period. If I had to pick 2 people, I believe my names I wrote down were Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown. Or I know Sean just put him on the wing list to maybe not do it, but you got to keep. I mean, you got, like you said, who do you want to give up? I mean, there's not. He's a defensive specialist. I'm sorry, the NBA is not built on defense. What are you going to give up on offense to bring in somebody who does play defense that you want to keep on the court? And as you said, you don't know if he's coming back 100% or not ever in this game. We have nothing to go off except for, I believe it was 5 games. So
not only that, they'll have to turn it into a 3-team like or they'll have to add something else because the salary discrepancy on that one is like still $10 million. Still $10 million.
And that was something I had read as well. San Antonio, they have a deal in the bag that they are ready to offer. If I read it correctly, and I checked my sources, guys. we talking 5-year, $219 million deal that San Antonio is ready to put on the table to keep him as long as he wants to stay and play for San Antonio.
That's essentially a supermax.
That is exactly what it was.
I think if the Celtics want him, they'll have to give up Morris, Brown, and Rozier, probably a draft pick too. And if you do that, that's a pretty here's the thing. It's one thing if you were to send those people to Phoenix, whatever. You're sending those 3 guys to Greg Popovich.
Oh boy.
That's why I said if Luol Deng ends up in San Antonio, I'm not ruling out anything that he would be able to do. Like he's going to get a bunch of knee injections and all of a sudden he's going to be an all-star again. Under Greg Popovich, I don't doubt what anybody can achieve.
No, if you can take Boris Diaw from the Charlotte Hornets and turn him into a double-digit score average for a season, you can do anything.
Yeah, he is amazing.
Diaw was clutching Charlotte. You hush your mouth, sir. No, I'm looking at the Spurs roster right now, and they actually need Kawhi to stay, or else they need a huge package deal to come back to them. Because if you look at their roster, they have LaMarcus Aldridge, who has actually been one of my favorite players because he's sort of that old school sort of 4-man who can step out if he needs to, but he has really good post moves, plays solid defense. I like LaMarcus Aldridge a lot. But then you look at guys like Kyle Anderson, an aging Pau Gasol, Rudy Gay's not coming back. Danny Green, former Tar Heel, who's been a solid puzzle piece for them for the past 3 years or so. An aging Manu Ginobili. And then you have Patty Mills. And then you've got Tony Parker. But just not a ton of big names on that roster anymore. And obviously Pop does this whole more with less type of mantra. He always has, but he's always had a Tim Duncan. He's always had a David Robinson. He's always had a Kawhi Leonard, plus these other guys that I just named on the back half of their careers. But they may actually need a couple of those younger pieces.
The Spurs always find a way. Think about this. They've missed the playoffs 5 times ever. Ever. It's either Gervin.
Did you have that stat, Cody?
No, I didn't. I wasn't ready for that one.
It was Gervin, Gilmore, Robinson, or Duncan for like 50 years. They sacrificed one season because David Robinson got hurt, and they were set up for 2 decades. So, sheesh. I mean, who knows? Like, if they would have missed the playoffs this year because of Kawhi getting hurt, and that process would have restarted, and they got their next franchise guy based on that, who knows how that would happen? But if they trade him, I don't doubt that the pieces that they get in return, Greg Popovich will find a way to craft that, and they'll become a 3 seed again. Yeah. That's what they do.
There's no question behind that.
All right, so where do you end up? Where do you see Kawhi ending up? Just give me your team names. Sean, you first.
It's either going to be the Spurs or I think it's going to be Boston. I'm obviously more plugged into what the Bulls are doing, and I've heard the Bulls have a package ready if that were to occur. I just don't want to give up any of the young players.
Okay, Cody?
I mean, I got the same two teams as Sean. It's either Boston or San Antonio. It all depends on whether this drama is real, but in my heart of hearts, I think he's staying in San Antonio.
And I think, excuse me, I think a lot of us think the same way. I think Boston is certainly a possibility. But with the early rumblings, we've heard the Los Angeles Lakers to potentially form a super team with our next young man on the trade block or free agency block. And that's none other than LeBron James.
That's not how you say it.
LeBron James.
There you go. That's how you say it.
That's how you say it, Chris.
That's how you put some respect on his name.
With a KT.
Respect him, man.
Whew. LeBron James. I wasn't sold on the LA idea until recently, but the thing is, I think if LeBron's there, Lonzo Ball isn't. And right now, nobody wants to take Lonzo Ball.
No.
The thing is, as I've mentioned, I've sang the praises of Greg Popovich. That's the only guy that can fix him, and they don't want him. That's it.
That was the last thing I wrote on my piece of paper. LeBron goes to LA, Lonzo Ball is out, so everything's fine. That's literally the last thing I wrote down.
It's comical to me that people think that LeBron would want to play with one of the historically worst rookies in the history of the NBA. Can't shoot, he can pass, that's it.
That's it.
He can't hit free throws. Andre Drummond is a better free throw shooter than Lonzo Ball. And it's not even close now.
And this is a topic for another day. That's what I hate about the whole tournament and the AAU circuit. We don't teach fundamentals anymore. I mean, I can go to an alumni game and put up a few threes still these days, but I mean, it makes me kind of sick to my stomach where we see all these guys that are professional that can't even make a free throw, and their form just looks all jacked up. It's ugly.
He shoots from the other side of his head, but that's besides the point.
So weird.
What else, Sean? What else you got that sold you today on LeBron going to LA?
Payroll being open. That's about it.
That's it.
He can try to construct whatever team he so chooses, which, a lot of people always, there's the fallacy of LeBron's the GM in Cleveland. Well, no, he's not, or else Kyrie Irving wouldn't have got traded. Kyrie Irving would still be a Cav, whether he liked it or not. Oh, yeah, whether he liked it or not. LeBron didn't want them to trade him. Huh. I look at it, they have $39 million in committed payroll right now. That includes $18 million on Ding. If they are somehow able to get rid of Ding, they might have to package a draft pick or some stuff with it. But they have Josh Hart, $1.6 million. That's a good piece to have, either to build or to trade. You have Lonzo Ball. Honestly, that hurts at $7.4 million. Yes. But yeah, Brandon Ingram, 5.7. It could be worse. It could be better. But if you need to move some guys around, that's a good one. But right now, that Josh Hart contract, where you have him for at least 3 years, and he did what he did, barely, like hardly starting or anything like that. I think he's a good piece to have. He would be a good piece on a LeBron team as well. And LeBron can just construct whatever he wants there, essentially, because they will be able to afford 2 or 3 really expensive guys. And then after that, and if they're able to re-sign Randall, he'll be able to come in. They'll go over the luxury tax, but they can bring him back too after they've signed these people, as long as they craft these signings in that way and he signs after.
And I don't think Magic Johnson cares if he hits the luxury tax, as long as he's winning games and it goes back to his heyday and they're winning championships left and right. But
that Dodger money right now. He doesn't care.
Now, to LeBron to Lakers, to me, is interesting because he does have a home in LA, as I'm sure some or most highly profiled NBA guys do. But he also has stake or ownership in, I think, 2 different media companies in LA. So he has some financial stability there. He has some entities that he can take care of. You know, his kids are growing up. There's probably some really nice, swanky, expensive schools in LA. So to me, it makes sense for him to go there. And that's sort of the life I think he likes to lead too. What do you think, Cody?
Well, you said a couple. He owns Spring Hill Entertainment that's been based out of LA since 2013. They've released 2 movies, 6 TV shows, none of which I've ever heard of, but it's there. So that's his adventure out there too. But my thing is, LeBron knows how to market, and where else can you better market anything else than LA? I don't think he's going to become a Clipper, because the Clipper, it doesn't look good. It doesn't market well. It doesn't market well. I mean, but the Lakers, I mean, you got Lakers and Celtics. You got Lakers being the dynasties for at least 2 times out of their career, where they just built full-fledged dynasties. I can see him wanting to do that because I know we've all heard it, he wants to seal his career and be a legend. And I agree with what everyone else like Shaq and Barkley has said. You don't have to do that. He's already a physical specimen that came and made his name in the game. But I think he wants to take it an extra mile. And then, like you said, Chris, he just wants to get his family in one spot and stop moving around.
And he is a smart guy. And as we actually stated on last week's show, he's smarter than us.
Yes.
He writes the narrative for himself. You know, going back to the cast at the news conference after Game 4, after being swept, where did that come from? Like, we've not heard anything until after Game 4 that he supposedly hurt his hand and punching a blackboard of some sort because he couldn't punch J.R. Smith in the nose after not knowing the score at Game 1 of the finals. So he writes the narratives for us. He's smarter than us. Therefore, he's going to end up exactly where he wants with his leverage, with everything lined up nicely. I don't think he's going to be hurting either way, but to me, LA makes the most sense.
I wouldn't mind, if I'm LeBron and I want to win possibly into the future, there's always the Philadelphia option, because you have Embiid, you have Simmons, and I wouldn't doubt, and they can afford him. They can afford him. Also, by the way, they have the number 10 draft pick. They also have a late first-round draft pick. It would be such a Charlotte Hornets thing to do, or Charlotte, whatever the hell the team your name is now, to trade Kemba
We're not the
Walker
Bobcats anymore, Sean. We're not the Bobcats anymore.
Kemba Walker for Markelle Fultz, Covington, and a first-round draft pick.
Jesus Christ.
Because
the other point guard that can't shoot.
Damn, Sean.
Yes. Not only can't shoot, forgot how to shoot. He forgot how to shoot. But the salaries match up. That's Markelle Fultz, 3 seasons of him. Covington, 4 seasons of him. And one of those draft picks, you have a 10 and a late first round. I could see something like that getting crafted, but just because somehow LeBron has that type of pull to be able to make something like that happen.
Yeah, and most definitely. And Cody and I have actually talked about before, I don't think Simmons and Embiid are going to be on the same team for much longer.
Really?
I think one of those 2 guys, possibly Embiid may be on his way out because he is now the whole quote unquote process thing. Mm-hmm. He has now named himself the process. It's not the team. It's him. He is the process. If I'm Ben Simmons, I don't take lightly to that. I think somebody's ego is going to get in the way. They're going to see greener pastures elsewhere, and one of them is probably going to be gone within, I would say, the next 2 years.
Well, Embiid is signed for 5 years, so if he signed for 5 years,
that's a big contract to dump.
It's a big contract, but it's also a contract for a guy who's averaging 23 and 11. Also, can knock down the three. He's 7 feet tall. He is that new style center that can step outside and knock one down. It's so weird how the game has changed. Literally 6 years ago, I was going to Kentucky games where the crowd would gasp when Anthony Davis stepped behind the three-point line or to the very edge of the arc and would shoot. DeMarcus Cousins, he's knocking him down all the time now.
Mm-hmm.
I remember
it's crazy.
It's so wild the way that the game has changed, and you never know who will shift that game into the – if the next Shaq comes along in 2 years, then we're going to be talking about all these presences down low again. It's so wild how one or two people can change the game. And Joel Embiid's a really versatile guy. And Ben Simmons, man, that's a tough piece to part with. Mm-hmm. He is, because he can do everything.
And if he can learn how to shoot past 12 feet, then by God, because he's basically a point forward. I mean, he's a 6'10 guy, 6'9", 6'10 guy that has the handle of a 6-foot guy and is ridiculously strong and fast at the same time. So if he can ever develop that mid-range jumper to at least add to his game, because he's one of those older school guys, because he can break out a post move. He can back you down. But once he develops that mid-range game, he is going to be darn near unstoppable.
That's the thing about Ben Simmons. If LeBron were to come, I think he would have to become more of a post presence than a point forward, because LeBron is the point forward. The point forward. Yeah. That's another way that the game has changed. I mean, to throw it back to watching Kentucky play, I remember seeing Royce White's big self running down the court, and I was like, what's he doing with the ball? Why is that guy running the point? He's too big. And then I saw him, and I was like, oh, so that's where basketball is going. That's scary. Obviously not with him, but with other people.
God, it's so true.
It is. It is.
You can't even elaborate on that. The big man is eventually going to make a comeback, and they're going to be running points. So
imagine Magic Johnson today.
Oh, my.
I look at people like that, and I'm like, there are so many guys from that era who would not fit today. The majority wouldn't fit today. But then I look at people like Magic Johnson, and the entire Orlando Magic team from the mid-'90s.
Yeah.
You had Dennis Scott and Nick Anderson today chucking up threes at the rate that people are chucking up threes. Mm-hmm. Then you had a huge point guard in Penny Hardaway and a dominant presence down low and Shaq. It's so weird to see who would fit and who wouldn't based on the way that basketball just changes from every 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a seismic shift toward the wing, basically a positionless basketball, which is really weird to say. You can't really classify anybody as a point guard or a power forward, especially a power forward or a center, because none of them really stay in the post. But speaking of a very highly paid or about to be four-man, let's move over to the Warriors. At the celebration parade, the Warriors GM basically said that, tongue-in-cheek, but really probably meant every word, that Kevin Durant is going to get paid whatever he would like to be paid. Would you agree with that? And would you pull the trigger on that? Do you think he's worth it for that long? Cody, what about you?
Do I think he's worth it? Yes, for the most part. Do I think they're going to be able to afford it? Yes, because I think at the end of this year, before the next season starts, I think Klay Thompson's gone. I don't know where he's going, but Klay Thompson is not going to be a Warrior next year. And with them clearing out his cap and getting paid for him because of what he's done with his career at Golden State, they're going to have some money to work with as soon as they sign the papers to get him out of there. KD will get what he is, and then they'll be able to get some pieces to work around what they will keep. I'm not sold on whether Draymond's still going to be there or not, because I don't I don't quite understand that situation, but I'm 100% that Klay Thompson's gone. You'll have enough money to afford KD.
Sean?
Yeah, right now for next year, they have 7 people under contract, and that is $102 million. By the way, Kevin Durant isn't one of them. So I'm with Cody. They're going to have to let somebody go. Klay Thompson is the least important, and that's crazy to think.
Right.
That Iguodala contract does not help. You're paying a guy $16, $17 million for a playoff presence, essentially, late in games, which can come in handy. That Livingston contract, $8.3 million next year. That's tough. They're going to have to prioritize, and you're going to have to make probably a big 2 work, and maybe, hopefully, a lot of people call it the big 3. Come on, Draymond Green's an all-star.
Yeah.
So, that's a big 4. Draymond Green's under a deal for 2 years, so maybe they hang on to him just because he's a little more sustainable and does something a little bit different than Klay and Steph do. I think that Durant stays, Draymond Green stays, and I'm with Cody. I think Klay Thompson hits the bricks, and they probably get a good haul for him too. If I were them, I would. You're going to cause some waves, no pun intended, in the Bay Area, but Jesus, man. You can get a lot for Klay Thompson. Find a team with some cap space and just have at it.
Yep.
For sure. And I actually disagree with you guys slightly in the sense that Draymond Green is probably not going to be there very long because he's already made it known that he is seeking a Supermax deal. And the only way he can currently do that is if he is named on an NBA or an All-NBA team, Defensive Player of the Year, or MVP. He is going to try to be one of those next year where he can get that Supermax to where instead of getting paid about $15 million a year, he's going to be up to about 40. So Draymond, known for his humility and humble character. So I don't see him being there that long. I think maybe the age of the Warriors is coming to a close, I would say, in 2 years, unless they, like you said, Sean, get some really good pieces back for Klay Thompson.
I don't doubt that could happen. I think they could get a pretty high, a couple, maybe even 3 first-round draft picks out of Klay Thompson, depending on the deal that you structure. As far as Draymond, I think he'll be there because, they got him for 2 more years. They only have Klay guaranteed 1 year. And there is some team out there dumb enough to give them all kinds of draft picks for 1 year of Klay, and they'll say, maybe we re-sign him, or maybe we're in the same boat we are now, just with 3 less draft picks. I could just see that. And
so you're saying he's coming to Charlotte then, right?
Yeah, they're going to swing a Mozgov deal for him. They're going to flip that contract. But there's a lot of people who would love to have Draymond Green for as versatile as he is, but there's a lot of people who would love to have Klay Thompson for as good as he is as well. Draymond won Defensive Player of the Year last year. Does that not factor into the possibility?
I think he has to do it. I think he has to do it in the contract year or something of that nature. There's some sort of stipulation I was reading about that he has to be one of these accolades in order to be automatically eligible, I guess, for that Supermax deal.
Sure.
But Age of the Warriors may be coming to a close, but with all these guys in mind, do you think there is going to be a new super team next year? Do you think maybe the Lakers pull the trigger on all that money and bring in a LeBron, a Kawhi, maybe even a Paul George, a guy who we've not talked about, who's that sort of that sneaky under the radar quality player who can be that third really all-star on a decent team?
I don't see the Lakers being a super team. I don't see there being a super team for another, I don't know, let's say 3 or 4 years. Kawhi's not going to LA. I can't sell myself on that because the way he is, his low-key self, driving his 90s age pickup truck through San Antonio, I don't see that happening to where I can at least see Boston because you got loyal fans, hard workers who support every team in the New England area. There's no question about that. So I can see him going there. Paul George, it's kind of like the whole Rudy Gay situation and everyone else. You don't know if he's ever going to be the same that he was before he got hurt. And I still don't think he has been. So yeah, you want that. You want to think that he's going to lure somebody in. I don't think Paul George is going to lure somebody in. I think Kawhi is going to lure somebody in. So I just don't see that super team happening anytime soon. That's my take on it.
Yeah, and with playoff P, with that being Paul George was not to give himself a nickname. He did not come through in the playoffs. Poor fella. I mean, I don't think I would give myself a nickname until I prove something. But Sean, any ideas on a super team next year? Yay, nay?
Well, as far as Kawhi driving a 90s pickup in San Antonio, that's because everybody in San Antonio drives a 90s pickup. It is one of the world's all-time worst cities. So, I mean, there you go in that regard.
Touche, you got me on that one. But the thing is, the man can't afford it, Sean. That's what we're trying to say.
That's true. 3 small forwards on one team. Now, granted, they can all play a variety of positions, but man, I feel like that will create some matchup issues for them.
and the other teams, depending on which night it is, I suppose.
Yeah, it's going to create some weird matchup issues that would benefit and cause a detriment for them. I don't know if all 3 of them end up there, but I think at least 2 big players are going to end up in LA.
Very good, very good. Well, from the established guys to the incoming rookies with the NBA draft, just looking up and down the card, guys, I don't think it's an extremely deep, guaranteed, big star type of draft. What do you think? Cody, start with you.
Well, in terms of the top 5 projected picks, you only have 2 of the top 5 projected picks averaging over 20 points a game in their college one-year career. Everyone else is 14 points or under. So, again, DeAndre Ayton and Marcus Bagley are your 1 and 2. I don't believe there's a question about that unless I read earlier that Bagley's like trying to avoid the Kings. But again, you're about to get paid, young fella. Who cares? But
he's gotten paid. We'll cover that in just a second. He's getting paid.
Yeah. Thanks, Jay-Z. But that's besides the point. But my thing is, those 2 are number 1. I got Luka Doncic coming from Slovenia from the Euro League, and then and that's it. That's your projected top 3. And Mo Bamba, who is the only, I guess you could say, true big man that will be going in the top 10, I guess you could say. 12 points, 10 rebounds, 3 blocks a game in college. Again, everyone in the top 5 projected, 3 of them are one and dones. And again, we got to wait till 2021 to see what happens with the one and dones. But I feel like it's going to really hurt the NBA.
Sean?
Yeah, I'm super excited to see the Kings take another big man that is not going to transform their franchise because DeMarcus Cousins hit the bricks. Didn't they cut Hassan Whiteside twice?
Yes, I think so.
That worked out for
No, they did, yeah.
Jason Thompson, Thomas Robinson, Willie Cauley-Stein. I think Zach Collins was theirs, and they traded it to Portland or something like that. I mean, good God. So, yeah, I'm excited to see them take another one. I think through the first maybe 12, 13 picks, there's some good upside for a lot of these guys, like Colin Sexton and Bridges, Knox. They had Porter, especially for where he is. Gosh, if they land him in Cleveland, you never know what kind of upside he could be. And, they might do all right next year if Cleveland ends up having the guys they have and love and Michael Porter, and he delivers really well. Other than that, man, after that, I don't see it as a really high upside draft. When I look at these second-round picks, Draymond Green ain't walking through that door. Dennis Rodman ain't walking through that door. I don't see it because, I mean, I watched Diallo play all last year, and I'm like, man, you should really come back. You should really come back. Other than that, 1 through essentially 11 or 12, I see as all of them have some pretty decent upside. I don't look at any of these guys and say, oh, wow, you'll probably never end up stepping foot on an NBA court. And almost every year, I say that about at least one of the guys drafted in the first 10, 11.
One guy I think is just unique based on his size is Mo Bamba from Texas. And, he's the 7-foot prototypical guy, but he's actually transformed his body even since his 1 season there and is a little bit leaner, meaner, stronger. And oh, by the way, has a 7'10" freaking wingspan.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't matter if you don't go to the weight room.
Do they make suits that big? Is my main question.
The good thing about this draft that I see, and I'm super excited for it, there are guys at every single position, multiple guys at every single position in this top 10 to 13 projected. You got multiple centers, power forward, small forward, shooting guards, point guards, and a couple guys that can play a hybrid of those. And I think that's going to make for a very, very interesting draft and a series of trades and all that stuff. I want to ask you guys, should they move free agency ahead of the draft?
Ooh, because you would definitely get a lot of movement there as far as like your pre-draft trades and positioning. But if you did that, you know, obviously you would still have to, with your draft lottery position, deal with the record you had the year prior. But I think that would definitely change your outtake on who you draft and why and where, really.
And how some of these guys would get used, because to be quite honest, the NBA is real weird. Like, they will refuse to play people for weird reasons. Hassan Whiteside he never started a game till he was 25. And like, any team would do well to have him in some form. I mean, a guy that can average 14 and 14, he couldn't get on the court for 4 years. And there was no indication that he was a bad player before that. He just couldn't really get that much of an opportunity. There are a lot of guys like that who just never really get the opportunity but have all the potential. And I'm not saying that it would be better if free agency was before the draft, but I think a lot of the draft picks wouldn't go wasted if that happened, because they would be filling out team need a lot more. And I think it would make trades particularly interesting, because you would be trading based on team need as opposed to gathering, and all of a sudden you've got guys who should be starting and they're like 9th on the depth chart. It's really weird.
Yeah, but you can't have the drama of the Decision 3 that's coming up in July without the way it's set up. What y'all said, it makes sense. That's how it should be. It's stupid not to do it like that. But it's about dollar signs, and if you want dollar signs and something to market, you got to keep it the way it is. That's the final answer on that. That's unfortunately the final answer, but that's unfortunately the way it's going to be, because you got to make dollars.
Because ESPN says so, pretty much. Because they need content, much like Knockdown Sports Radio, which you can find on Twitter at Knockdown _media. There you go. That's good.
Studying my notes. I'm ready to keep going. This is fun.
Very good. Very good. Well, rap aficionado Cody Teague. So your boy, as to steal a line from Sean, Jay-Z is now the creative director for basketball operations of the brand Puma. Puma basketball is making a return after 20 years. Their last rookie contract was Vince Carter, and he opted out and basically gave $13 million back so he could go to Nike. But Puma, in case you have not heard, has signed basically the 2 of the top 3 picks, DeAndre Ayton and Marvin Bagley III, to deals. And now I believe I saw where Michael Porter Jr. has been added to that group. So Jay-Z out here doing work for Puma basketball, guys. Sean, I think you're somewhat of a noted sneakerhead. What do you think about this?
It worked, apparently. If they can get one of these guys to hit, that would be a good thing. I mean,
yeah.
Ultimately, I think Vince Carter made the right call just because he was in those cool commercials with Bootsy Collins. Do you remember those?
I do. Those were pretty cool.
The funk. We made some key trades, and we got the funk. They've got to go beyond marketing and all that stuff, because Puma, they are not known as a basketball brand. You look at what Adidas has been able to do to revive their brand over the last couple of years, and Under Armour with Steph Curry, as much as they get roasted, the sales are good now. So you never know what will be the next hit. I mean, if you would have told me 6-7 years ago that Kanye West would sell shoes like crazy, I'd have been like, yeah, okay. If you would have told me that shoes that look like a bowl of Fruity Pebbles would go crazy, I would have been like, yeah, right, guy. but you never know what'll hit. But apparently having Jay-Z associated with the brand has helped out. Also, I would say that throwing a lot of money at people doesn't hurt either.
Correct. But Cody, help me out with this one. Is Jay-Z transitionally cool enough in 2018 because of his association with Beyonce to carry a brand like Puma basketball?
I mean, that's the only thing that keeps him relevant at this point. Him and Kanye had their riff because they're done after their album they did together. Him and Beyonce just dropped a new album today. So I mean, they are always going to be on the up and up. You got the Queen Bee on your side. You can do whatever you want and not say anything. But the thing is we all know how great Jay-Z is at marketing. He bought the Nets, built a team, got above 500, sold it, and made bank. So Jay-Z knows what he's doing. He puts on a hell of a concert as well if you ain't never seen him. But Jay-Z's in it to make money for Jay-Z. Whatever happens to Puma happens. They just need to stick to making fireproof shoes for the Formula One racers.
I didn't even know they did that. So
I do now.
Apparently. So that pretty much wraps up our NBA draft coverage. Sean, being with Fightful, just your quick thoughts on the weekend that was in WWE. That sort of includes NXT TakeOver, Money in the Bank, and then sort of the fallout from Raw and SmackDown. What were some of your highlights and lowlights?
Highlights, the gauntlet match I thought was crafted really, really well on SmackDown Live. I liked that a lot. I interested to see how they handle Daniel Bryan in the tag team picture. I thought that Big Cass had the match of his life on Sunday, as did Nia Jax. And Ronda Rousey, as it turns out, is a better pro wrestler than an MMA fighter, and she was a damn good MMA fighter. What she has been able to do is awesome. The NXT brand, I love that. Also, the way that Triple H handles wrestling media is fantastic. I like that. He is much more wrestling media friendly. The worst, the Roman Reigns, Jinder Mahal situation. You cannot program him with people that the crowd doesn't care about. Not hates, just doesn't care about in Jinder Mahal, or else you're going to get that type of reaction. Big Cass getting fired, it's because he is an ass.
Apparently, that's what I hear. So, and
I've heard of
unfortunately,
him trying to kick people out of backstage areas that he didn't have any business doing. He's knocked down doors on tour buses and gotten drunk and all this stuff that he does. Otherwise, I think WWE had a pretty good weekend, and I rather enjoyed it. It was a big, long, busy weekend. The Ronda Rousey segment on Raw was outstanding.
Yep.
She was really good. The Big Hog is back.
James Ellsworth, if you're not familiar, ladies and gentlemen.
Fantastic.
And Cody's over here. He has no clue what we're talking about. He unfortunately does not watch the product at this point.
Isn't James Ellsworth from the – isn't he from, like, North Carolina or something?
I think he's from Maryland, actually.
Whatever. The Hog reaches to North Carolina, so whatever.
Oh, man. But for me, I've always been an NXT mark, so I was really looking forward to the Velveteen Dream Ricochet match, which I thought delivered.
The entrance.
Oh, God.
It was great.
See, I didn't get the Prince Puma thing until I saw it. I knew he was going for the Hogan thing because of the Tough Enough. Like, I knew what he was going for. And, of course, because we dive into social issues on here on Knockdown Sports Radio, it was interesting to see an African-American gentleman wearing the Hulk Hogan getup. I will say that.
When I see that, I think of Velveteen Dream as a next-level troll.
Oh, absolutely. And that's part of the character. And that's what's, I think, really refreshing about him, because he's so in tune with what I call hashtag the little things, the details, and just little things like that are the things that pop me as sort of an analytical fan. Not necessarily I'm here for the entertainment per se. I'm very analytical in the way that I watch pro wrestling, and his type of stuff is phenomenal.
The way that all unfolded, it was weird. They posted a video of his entrance, but they scrubbed all photos from the photo gallery of the entrance. And when I asked Triple H about the getup, the gear in the entrance, he was flustered a little bit when I talked to him. And he was like, I applaud anybody for using creativity and being unique, but and then I was like, he
It's
went
like
out of his way to
but
not
he didn't
mention.
want to talk about it.
Yeah, he didn't really want to talk about it, but we're limited to NXT questions on those calls, and he knew he had to answer it, type of thing. So that was an interesting conversation.
Yeah, and I guess the worst of the weekend is we heard today that, and Cody, you may not have actually heard about this yet, Big Van Vader passed away on Monday due to complications from his heart issue and as well as pneumonia. His son went to Twitter today to confirm that, but I grew up with him in WCW. I loved his stuff with Sting originally. That was some of my early Sting. Sting is my all-time favorite, I will say that. But I loved his stuff with him. And a tremendous big man who could pretty much do anything that you asked him to. And just a sad loss. The one thing I really, really hate is he was not put into the Hall of Fame before he passed. I think he was deserving of that honor. I'm assuming he'll go in the next few years, but I wish it would have happened while he was alive.
That was a sentiment that I echoed on today's Listen Your Boy podcast, virtually all of that. I was a wrestling fan well before Sting and Vader, but that feud, I think, hooked me and ensured that I would never leave pro wrestling as a fan, because I saw Sting as Superman, and just like it's hard to make Roman Reigns an underdog, it was hard to make Sting an underdog. He was a big, bad-looking dude, muscular, fast but strong, looked like an athlete. And I looked at Vader and I was like, wow, he might do everything that Sting does better than him. And I thought that the way that Vader was, the way that he looked, the way that he wrestled was the real way to make a monster. How many times have you heard in interviews where giants were told, oh, you're not wrestling like a giant? Well, that's what made Vader so horrifying, is that he could do things that he should not have been able to do. He would come off the top rope. And to me, that's the scariest thing. Like, a dinosaur is going to be scary if it walks up to me. If a dinosaur hits me with a shooting star press, I'll be even more scared of it, because it shouldn't be able to do that. And Vader could.
Cody, I think Vader was actually your era a little bit. So do you have any memories?
One of the favorite matches, I know it was 1995. I don't know if it was Bash at the Beach or another pay-per-view that WCW had, but I'm pretty sure it was Bash at the Beach. It was Vader versus Sting outside on Venice Beach, California, if I'm remembering correctly. And it was one of the best put together matches I had ever seen growing up. I even had that on VHS, man, and I would watch it over and over.
Nice.
Yeah,
the more you know. I didn't know you had any wrestling tapes. That's more than I've got, man.
I got 3 wrestling VHSs at the house, man. And that was the thing. Vader, when I saw that today, I was a little sad. Like you said, he's not in the Hall of Fame, but Vader's always going to be a fan favorite. I know he was perceived as a heel, but he never was a heel to a lot of people. So that's what made him special. And like Sean said, big man could fly and big man could get down in the ring. So RIP, a great freaking wrestler.
Absolutely. And want to remind everybody to check out Fightful.com, where Sean is the managing editor over there. Great podcast across the board of pro wrestling, MMA, boxing. They do fantastic work. Any particular projects that you're working on right now, Sean?
Gosh, everything. We're always launching new aspects of the site. FightfulSelect.com is our premium service. You can get all your free wrestling news at FightfulWrestling.com. But if you want more, we have extra podcasts. We leak raw scripts on Fightful Select all the time, which doesn't exactly put us in favor of WWE. Early access to a lot of stuff, just a lot of variety on that service. But Fightful.com is where you can get all your wrestling, MMA, and boxing news. It is a very ambitious venture to cover all 3. Of course, we have ways that you can sort those if you don't like either of the 3. But yeah, just check us out over at Fightful.com.
Very good. Do you have a personal Twitter you want to push as well?
At Sean Ross Sapp. That's SeanRossSapp.
Cody, where can people hit you up on the old social media webs?
You can find me at CRTEAGUE, 008 at the Twitter handle.
Very good. And as always, you can find us on Twitter at Knockdown_. Oh, that was awful. That was worse than the first one.
We got to stop doing that. Go ahead.
No. So Knockdown_media is where you can find us on the Twitter sphere. And you can also find Knockdown Sports Radio on the audio version add now iTunes, Google Play, iHeartMedia, I'm getting all of them mixed up, TuneIn and Stitcher, and as well, hopefully, as some more here in the very near future. But for Sean Ross Sapp, Cody Teague, I am Chris Calicut. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Knockdown Sports Radio. We will see you next time. Thanks for listening.